I got over it. So here she is over it and ready to join us with some fiction. It's totally fine. I'm totally fine. I'm going to read you the first 4 or 5 pages of a short story because not having closure is spooky and it's Halloween. So. This is Believers. He was called Grimmy, though I'm not sure why. No one was sure why. He'd been named so long ago that the kids who did it were grown and gone. Grimmy lived in the woods past the old Board of Education building. You couldn't find anyone who'd cop to seeing him straight on, though everyone had an almost story. Older siblings, sometimes a parent, whoever was around to overhear. What made him different was that you could prove him. During that summer, my friends and I went out in a group of 4 or 5 to look for his campsites, which shifted every few days. You'd find a pair of rain-hardened socks, some bedded down leaves, maybe even a dirty magazine. For the longest time afterward, I couldn't think of a girl naked without remembering those photos in the woods, so generally I tried not to. He probably would have stayed one of our stories forever if it hadn't been for Tyler's sister. My family had moved states when I was halfway through 6th grade. My dad had gotten a promotion, regional manager of his tech company, but at the time I didn't care. What mattered was my parents' betrayal. I'd spent my whole life in our old town and had the acceptance of my peers, if not their respect, and now I would have to start all over. Somehow I'd gotten the idea that I had already met most everyone I would ever need to impress. But my parents were unsympathetic, or else the case I made was unconvincing, because we went to Maryland anyway. Tyler was the first kid to speak to me that first day in school. I clung to him because anything was better than sitting in the cafeteria alone. He was my default friend. And that first day, I think we both knew it. There were worse things. It was just good luck that Tyler turned out to be okay. He was an actual Boy Scout, well-liked, smart in all our classes, but not so smart you had to hate him. And I didn't hate him, and he didn't hate me. In fact, he kept inviting me over for dinners and s'mores and movies long after he could have shaken me off. By the end of the school year, though, I managed my way into friendship with one of the little fringe cliques and didn't have to go puppy dogging after Tyler anymore. Mostly the kids in this group were other boys, though sometimes Vicki Hansen joined us when she was feeling social. She was tall and terrifying, and she could spit like a man. They weren't especially nice, any of them, which was part of the reason I was so happy they'd chosen me. These were the kids who taught me how to climb chain link fences. These were the kids who first told me about Grimmy and showed me his traces, and for the first sun-dazed weeks of summer, that's all I could think about. Then Tyler called my house wanting to hang out, and I remembered how much I owed him. So at the next meeting in the woods, I asked my new friends if he could come with us and look for clues. Tyler Cole, said Mark Perlman. He's my best friend, I said. He's okay, Adam, Mark said very quickly, and the others nodded. We all think so, it isn't that. We all, 5 of us that day, counting me, fell silent. It's just, you know, Katie, he said at last. What he told me then was this. During all those lunchtime conversations, our bus rides to one another's houses, our partner projects in science class, Tyler had left one person out of his family stories. His parents were both orthodontists, and his grandparents lived in Virginia, and he had a Jack Russell named Wishbone after the dog from TV. And he had a sister, or anyway, he used to. Katie Cole, Mark said. God, Katie Cole. She was a straight-A student, played the clarinet in the high school marching band, babysat some of the neighbors' kids on the weekends. She watched me once, Vicki said, solemn. Me too, Mark said. She was gorgeous. 3 years before, when we were going into 3rd grade, she'd been in 10th. She wanted to do track in the spring, so that fall she trained all around the neighborhood, mostly middle distance stuff. One afternoon, she left her parents a note and went out with a stopwatch, and the last time anyone ever saw her, she was running. And get this, Mark said, she was headed here. I said, she ran away. Why would she run away? She had it made, Mark said. And she never came back either. They only ever found one of her shoes, and guess where it was? Something wet lurched in my chest. We were standing right at the border of the Board of Ed lot in the woods proper, close enough to the building that the grass was still trimmed. Our voices had gotten quieter and quieter without our noticing, and then we fell silent. The crickets made a sound like bacon frying. I looked down at my feet and thought about stiff gray socks, piles of flattened leaves. I thought he was just a guy, I said at last. Yeah, said one of the other boys. Kind of. The next time Tyler called, I felt guilty enough to invite him over. We played video games in the basement and fake wrestled during the cutscenes, like always. But I let him win for the first time ever. He didn't appear to notice. He was having a great time eating my mom's salsa and bouncing happily on the edge of the couch. For some reason, his amiability made me sadder than anything. Salsa was such a small thing, and I almost cried when he asked if we had more, because I could not bear the thought of depriving him that happiness, almost as unbearable as my own pity. What are you doing Saturday? He said when he left for dinner. We're going to the wave pool. You should come. Saturday was a grimy day. I think my aunt is visiting, I said. Suddenly my life was split in two. There was the normal part with Tyler and my parents and the rest of the world where I pretended not to know what I knew. And then there was the part with the codes and plans and maps, with Mark and Vicky and Donnie and Jordan, where we cataloged each thing we stumbled over and scared ourselves crazy with stories about what Grimmy might be like in person. Metal teeth, nails sharp as knives, skin so rotten it looked like it was melting. Holding these two halves together was Katie. I tried to find out everything about her I could without drawing attention. I had this idea that maybe I could figure out where she went. I had this idea that she, not Grimmy, was the mystery I was meant to solve. It would be nice to say that I wanted to do this for the Coles, who had to have been through hell, but it would be untrue. Even now, that's hard to admit. There was something about this disaster, so close to my own life and at such a safe remove, and it was something I didn't want to name. The drought struck shortly after, and all over town the grass turned yellow. When I visited now, Tyler's parents wanted us to stay on the sidewalk and out of the backyard. The lawn was set up with timed sprinklers, which I had seen in a movie once. This was my first clue that the Coles are richer than us, those sprinklers. It was the kind of lawn people were paid to maintain, and even during better weather, Tyler and I weren't supposed to walk on it if we didn't have to. Whereas my mother always cut back the bushes in our yard herself, wearing an old bandana and humming Fleetwood Mac. Tyler's place had fantastic air conditioning too. The house was old and gorgeous, half a mile from mine and close to the woods. I'd been there a million times at this point, but I still hadn't gotten over the skylight in the foyer or all of those leather couches. I swear I even had dreams about the mint green carpet his mom had picked out, all raked up in the same perfect direction. So I didn't mind having to stay indoors, even if Tyler obviously did. He kept apologizing for the scarcity of things to do, and I told him I didn't mind, but he'd shut up about it, and we would settle into an easy kind of quiet. On one of these visits, when we'd run out of things to smash or girls to talk about, I excused myself and left Tyler splayed across the couch in the den. The bathroom was right off the kitchen, but I walked the whole length of the hall, looking at the family photographs. I hadn't had a chance to linger in front of them before. Look, a wedding snapshot. Tyler on 4th grade school picture day. A candid from a family reunion, judging by how everyone is squinting identically. And then, at the very end, a studio portrait of a girl with freckles, hair tied back, braces on display. I knew her immediately because she looked just like her brother. I stopped short. I heard myself breathe. My face was reflected over hers, and it felt wrong for me to be that close. Neither of us blinked. She was real. She had maybe stood right here, looking at this exact picture. I hadn't exactly doubted it, but it was different to see her, to really see her. I had never known someone who disappeared before. Then there was a noise in the kitchen and I bolted. Reflexive, I don't know why. It was like Katie was a secret I had to keep, a story no one had told Tyler yet. And if I were the one who slipped up, I would never forgive myself. He could still be my friend if we didn't acknowledge what had happened. That's what I decided later, anyway, once I'd locked myself in the bathroom, the way a real friend would. Thank you.